The bouquet that smelled like Worth flowers arrived 3 days after the birth. Cameron Valles sat in her dimly lit bedroom, arms wrapped around a tiny sleeping infant, her skin still raw from stitches, milk stains darkening her nightgown. Her hair was matted, tied into a loose knot, and her lips were cracked from dehydration. She hadn't slept for more than an hour at a time since her emergency C-section. So when the doorbell rang and the nurse brought up a bouquet of roses wrapped in gold foil, Cameron blinked like she was in a dream. She wasn't expecting flowers. Not from Darren. He hadn't even brought her real food since they left the hospital. She peeled the card from the stems with one trembling hand, and when she read the words, everything inside her went still. "You made a beautiful baby. I'll take good care of him too. Bianca." Her mind didn't process the name at first. Bianca. It sounded like someone from a bridal catalog or a bad romance novel. Then it hit her. Bianca Daniels. The intern from Darren's firm. The one who giggled too hard at his jokes, who Cameron once dismissed as harmless. The one who had sent her a weird emoji at her baby shower. The one Darren swore was just an assistant. Her fingers curled around the card. Not shaking. Not even angry. Dead calm. Cameron didn't scream. She didn't throw the flowers. She did something far scarier. She stood up, walked to her desk drawer, pulled out her old legal pad, the one she used to draft grant proposals, and started writing. Her body was still bleeding. Her husband was still lying. And now a woman who wasn't even there for the delivery had the audacity to send flowers. This wasn't a mistake. This was a warning shot. A declaration. But Cameron? She had a full arsenal. And the one thing new mothers never get credit for? They learn how to function through pain. That night, when Darren came home, she didn't ask questions. She didn't cry. She just said, "There's soup in the microwave. I hope Bianca likes leftovers." And she walked upstairs like she hadn't just lit the fuse to a bomb. Mother, widow, strategist. Cameron didn't cry. She didn't scream into a pillow. She didn't call her best friend to vent. She studied. 3 days after the bouquet, she moved into the guest room. Darren didn't fight it. He mumbled something about giving her space, like he hadn't just detonated a marriage. She let him think she was broken. Let him believe he had time to fix it. Because while he sat downstairs playing Call of Duty and ordering Postmates, she was constructing a war map. Step 1. Bianca Daniels. Google, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter. She found everything. Age, 26. Education, community college, then a finance certificate. Job title, executive assistant to Darren Valles. No mention of the affair. Of course not. But there were breadcrumbs. Always. A photo from a conference. Bianca wearing a champagne-colored dress that looked suspiciously like Cameron's. A birthday post from 3 weeks before Cameron gave birth. My favorite person flew me to wine country. I'm spoiled. She zoomed in on the wine glass. Saw Darren's watch in the reflection. She knew that watch. She gave it to him. That was the weekend Darren told her he was visiting his sick aunt. She felt no shock, just confirmation. Step 2. Follow the money. Darren had always kept their finances his domain, but Cameron wasn't stupid. She had access. She checked the joint account and froze when she saw it. 4 charges for hotel rooms over the last 3 months. Not fancy ones. Discreet. Mid-tier. Hourly options. She took screenshots, printed the statements, labeled each one neatly in a manila folder. Then she opened a new document titled Leverage. Step 3. Control the narrative. Cameron called her old college friend, Shelby, a lawyer with a reputation for being ruthless and discreet. I'm not filing anything yet, Cameron said. I just need to know what's possible. Shelby didn't ask questions, just said, everything's possible. If you know what pressure points to press. Cameron ended the night nursing Levi under soft lamplight, legal pad on one side, pacifier on the other. She whispered to her son, I'm going to protect you, not just from strangers, but from the people who think they can toy with our lives. And Levi, wide-eyed, innocent, blinked up at her, as if he already knew. His mother wasn't a victim. She was a storm with lullabies. First warning. Shot, no bullets needed. It started with an envelope. No name. No return address. Just a cream-colored envelope hand-delivered to Bianca's office desk. Inside, a single photograph, grainy, zoomed in. Bianca, kissing Darren outside the Sycamore Inn, one of the discreet hotels, and under the photo, handwritten in perfect black ink, "If you think flowers are powerful, try evidence." Bianca didn't scream. She didn't run. She sat at her desk for 10 straight minutes, motionless, before quietly excusing herself. Cameron didn't see the reaction. She didn't need to. She knew fear when she planted it. That evening, Darren came home late, said he'd been wrapping up a presentation. Cameron handed him Levi and walked away. Darren looked down at the baby awkwardly. "Hey there, big man, Daddy missed you," Cameron called out from the kitchen. "You ever take Bianca to the Sycamore Inn?" Silence. A long one. She turned. He was frozen. She dried her hands on a towel, smiled like it was nothing. "I'm just organizing our tax documents. So many receipts." Darren didn't answer, didn't breathe, and Cameron just nodded. Good. Let the tension tighten. Let the news begin to warm. The next day, Bianca called out sick. For the rest of the week, Cameron sent another letter, this one to Darren's boss. Anonymous. Typed. Contained copies of the hotel receipts, internal HR policy codes, a question at the end. "Is this the kind of leadership your company promotes?" Cameron didn't want to ruin Darren's career. Not yet. She wanted him to watch it shake. To feel the foundation crack beneath him while she smiled from across the dinner table. One night, she stood over Levi's crib and whispered, "She sent me flowers while I was still bleeding. Now she's the one wilting." Then she closed the door behind her and began drafting a legal plan that would do what most women only dream of: take down the mistress without ever touching her. The mistress tries to bite back. Bianca showed up to work the following Monday with fire in her eyes, fresh blowout, a new trench coat, and a tight-lipped smirk, like she had convinced herself she wasn't scared. She marched into Darren's office, slammed the door shut. No one heard what was said, but they heard the tone, sharp, fast, desperate. Then silence. She left 10 minutes later, her face pale. That afternoon, Cameron received a text. Unknown number. "You're bitter and boring. He never loved you." No name, no context, but it didn't need one. Cameron smiled softly. Bianca was spiraling. Good. She responded with a single emoji. Let her wonder, let her panic. Then Cameron made her next move. She reached out to an old contact, a woman named Erica, a former co-worker who now worked in compliance for Darren's firm. They hadn't spoken in 2 years, but Cameron remembered birthdays, and Erica owed her one. Over coffee, Cameron said one sentence: "I need to know if your internal systems flag affairs between executives and subordinates." Erica blinked. "Why?" Cameron didn't smile. She just slid the photo across the table. Erica's expression turned cold. Oh. 2 days later, Bianca received a formal inquiry from our discreet but chilling requested any personal gifts received, any non-business interactions during off hours, any romantic involvement she may have had with superiors. Subject line: read. Professional conduct audit, private and time-sensitive. Bianca called Darren. Panicked. He didn't answer. Cameron was already 5 moves ahead. She wasn't trying to get Bianca fired. Not yet. She was making her spend every waking second bracing for impact, because sometimes the worst feeling isn't falling. It's standing on glass that's already cracked. That night, Darren finally confronted her. "Are you behind this? The letters? The HR complaints?" Cameron looked at him over her tea. "You mean the evidence of your infidelity?" "No, Darren. I just uncovered what you buried." He didn't speak. She sipped calmly. "Sleep well. Tomorrow's going to be noisy." She tried to run, but I was already there. Bianca stopped showing up to the office. No formal resignation. No explanation. She simply vanished. But Darren knew. And Cameron? She made sure of it. The morning after Bianca disappeared, Darren received a package at the front door, wrapped in brown paper. No note. Inside, a printed ticket confirmation. Bianca's name. One-way flight to Miami. Departure that afternoon. And underneath it, clipped together, a printed HR complaint, hotel receipts, a copy of his firm's internal policy on workplace relationships, and a sticky note that read, "She's not running from me. She's running from consequences." Darren punched a hole in the kitchen cabinet. Cameron didn't flinch. She simply picked up Levi, kissed his forehead, and said, "Your father's still learning that consequences don't disappear just because someone books a flight." Bianca did land in Miami. But freedom? No, Cameron had already contacted Bianca's landlord, posing as a reference checker. She knew Bianca had broken her lease, owed money, left personal items behind in a rush, and then she contacted the leasing office in Miami. Send them anonymous copies of Bianca's misconduct record and legal risk. Lease? Declined. Bianca checked into a cheap hotel near Coral Gables. She posted a single Instagram story, a sunset, captioned, "New beginnings." Cameron reposted it, added one word, "temporary." Then she filed the papers. Civil action, malicious interference, emotional distress during postpartum recovery. Shelby, her lawyer friend, ensured it was airtight. Bianca would be served within 72 hours. And here's the twist. Cameron filed it in a state Bianca had just moved into. Jurisdiction was hers now. Darren begged, "Cam, please, this is too far." She looked at him, eyes sharp as glass. "She sent me flowers. I'm just sending her what she truly deserves, legal sunlight." That night, Cameron opened her notebook and wrote, "She ran before I ever chased her. I just made sure every road led back to me. The day she learned I don't bluff." The courthouse was small, unimpressive from the outside, but inside, the tension was thick enough to slice. Bianca walked in flanked by a thin, wide-eyed attorney who looked like she'd only recently passed the bar. Her tan was patchy, her heels were too high for the hallway floor, and her face, all confidence, drained the second she saw Cameron sitting calmly in the front row, wearing navy, hair pulled back, no makeup, just truth, and a folder. Bianca tried to appear indifferent, smiled, flipped her hair, but her eyes darted from Cameron to Shelby, then to the court clerk as if searching for an exit. There was none. The judge entered. It was civil court, not a criminal case, but the weight in that room felt heavier than prison. The clerk called, "Fales v. Daniels, emotional distress, intentional infliction, interference during medical recovery." The words hung in the air like knives. Shelby stood first, calm, precise. She outlined the timeline, Bianca's presence at the firm, the affair, the flowers, the messages, the impact on Cameron's physical and psychological state during recovery from an emergency C-section. Then Shelby introduced testimony. And Cameron stood. She walked to the front, not trembling, not vengeful, just honest. She spoke slowly. "I'm not here because my husband cheated. I'm here because a woman thought she could stake claim to my child while my incision was still healing." Gasps in the gallery. The judge didn't move, didn't blink. Cameron continued, "She used my trauma like a trophy. She wanted to be seen, so I made sure the law would see her too." Bianca's lawyer objected, denied malice, called it a misunderstanding. Shelby calmly handed over the card, the one that came with the flowers. The judge read it out loud. "You made a beautiful baby. I'll take good care of him too." And suddenly, the courtroom wasn't silent. It was suffocating. Bianca looked like she might faint. The judge didn't rule that day, but Bianca knew. So did Darren, watching from the hallway, unable to step inside. That night, Cameron lit a candle, held Levi close, and wrote one line in her journal. "Justice isn't loud. It's a room where your enemy has to hear your pain." Read aloud by a stranger in a robe. He thought he could stay neutral until I took his name back. It started with mail, not court papers, not flowers, divorce papers, left neatly on Darren's side of the bed, unsigned, open-ended. The message? "I could end you, but I'm giving you a chance to end yourself first." When Darren found them, he didn't scream, didn't argue. He stood in the doorway holding the folder like it weighed 100 pounds. "You're serious?" His voice was small. Cameron was folding baby clothes, soft blues, tiny socks. She looked up. You're not a villain, Darren. You're just weak. And I don't raise my son to believe weakness gets rewarded. He sat down on the edge of the bed, burying his face in his hands. You don't understand what? It was like she cut him off. I understand exactly what it was like. You left me bleeding so you could impress someone who thinks stolen motherhood is sexy. Silence. Then she added, and now, I'm giving you a choice. Sign this. Leave quietly. Or stay and watch everything you build carry my name, not yours. The next morning, she filed to legally reclaim her maiden name. No ceremony. No social post. Just an appointment and a signature. Cameron Velez was now Cameron Hart again. And with that, Darren watched her reclaim more than a name. She took their mutual friends, the nonprofit she once ran alone, the sympathy of everyone who'd ever thought she was just a quiet wife. A week later, Darren tried to post a photo of Levi. Father-son bonding. Cameron messaged him directly. I'm filing for sole custody if you make him part of your damage control. He deleted it within minutes. Bianca hadn't responded to the lawsuit yet. But Darren, he had already lost. Because Cameron wasn't trying to destroy him. She was erasing him piece by legal piece. And there's nothing more terrifying to a man used to being forgiven than a woman who finally isn't. She bent, but I broke her quiet. Bianca showed up to the second court date alone. No lawyer, no makeup, no trench coat. Just a plain navy dress that hung wrong on her body, like she borrowed someone else's. Confidence and forgot the receipt. Cameron didn't smile. She didn't gloat. She just watched, like a woman who already knew the outcome. The judge offered Bianca the option to settle, avoid a full trial, avoid depositions, avoid being dragged deeper than she already was. Bianca nodded before the sentence even finished. Yes, she whispered. Please, the settlement required a public apology, a cease and desist agreement from ever contacting Cameron or Levi again, a 5-figure financial penalty, and a signed affidavit admitting reckless interference with maternal recovery. It wasn't criminal, but it was permanent. Bianca cried. Not loudly, not for sympathy. The silent kind of crying. The kind that happens when you realize you were never the predator, just a prop. When the statement was posted to Bianca's once polished Instagram, the internet tore it apart. I deeply regret the emotional harm my actions caused anew. Mother, I apologize for the pain, the invasion, and the disrespect. I was wrong. Comments flooded in. You're disgusting. Flowers after a C-section? Sick. Hope it was worth it. She deleted the post within 2 hours. But screenshots never sleep. Her job, gone. Her reputation, toast. Her future, irrelevant. Cameron never commented, never responded. She just updated her nonprofit's board bio. Founder, survivor, strategist. No drama, no scandal. Just truth. That night, Cameron sat alone on her balcony, drinking tea. Levi was asleep, and she whispered to the sky, some women want to be adored, some want to be feared. But me? I just wanted her to understand. I never forget how people make me bleed. She apologized to the internet. I spoke to the world. Cameron received hundreds of DMs after the apology went viral. From women, from strangers, from people who had been cheated on, silenced, sidelined, forgotten. How did you do it? Where did you find that kind of strength? Can you help me do the same? She didn't reply to most of them, but she read every single one. And then she had an idea. She booked a room at the local library. No press, no fancy banners, just a small flyer titled, The Silence They Counted on a Top by Cameron Hart. It was supposed to be intimate. 15, maybe 20 women, 87 showed up. Some stood in the back holding coffee cups like armor. Others came alone, notebooks in hand. Cameron walked to the front, calm and steady. She didn't read a speech. She didn't quote anyone else. She just looked at the crowd and said, You're not crazy. You're not weak. And you're not overreacting. They just made you feel that way to keep their secrets safe. The room was silent. Then someone started to cry. By the end of the hour, she had shared her story not with revenge in her voice, but with reclamation. She wasn't telling them how she punished someone. She was showing them how she rebuilt herself. 2 weeks later, A women's empowerment podcast reached out, then a magazine, then a publisher. Not for gossip, for her story, for her voice, for her fire. Darren tried to reach out. He sent a short message. I'm proud of you. I mean it. She blocked the number because pride from a man who watched her break was irrelevant. At her second live talk, someone asked, if you could say one thing to the woman who hurt you, what would it be? Cameron smiled, looked right into the lens. Thank you. You reminded me I'm not breakable. I'm unforgettable. The flowers still smell like blood. It had been 7 months. The lawsuit was closed. Bianca had vanished. Darren had faded into digital oblivion. Cameron had reclaimed her name, her voice, her peace. But the flowers, she still remembered them. Exactly. A T. Her third speaking event, a panel for postpartum recovery and resilience. Someone from the audience asked, what was the moment you knew you couldn't forgive? Cameron paused, a long pause. Then she said, 3 days after I gave birth, I got a bouquet. And the note said, you made a beautiful baby. I'll take good care of him too. Gasps. Silence. She continued, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just realized someone thought I was gone enough, weak enough to replace. Her voice didn't shake, but her hands did. That night, she returned home to find a new bouquet on her doorstep. An O card, same gold foil. She froze. For a second, it was as if time folded in on itself, like she was back in the bleeding silence of her postpartum bedroom, back in the moment where trust had died. She didn't move. Then a neighbor walked by. Oh, I think that's from the community center for the fundraiser. They said they were sending a thank you gift. Cameron exhaled slowly. Her pulse slowed, but her chest didn't loosen because trauma doesn't knock anymore. It waits. She brought the bouquet inside, set it on the counter, and stared at it for 10 full minutes before whispering, I forgave myself for believing I was replaceable, but I will never forgive the world for making it seem normal. Then she picked up the bouquet and threw it in the trash. Not out of fear, but because that smell didn't remind her of spring anymore. It reminded her of stitches, of silence, of a note that tried to erase her, and she would never let anyone erase her again. I stopped reacting and started building. Speaking engagements grew into a platform. Not just events, not just stories, a movement. She called it Mothered and Unbroken. It wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about man. It wasn't even about survival. It was about reclaiming narrative, about rewriting motherhood as power, not vulnerability. Women wrote in from everywhere, stories of betrayal, of silence, of being left alone in hospital rooms while others made jokes about dad bods. Cameron responded to each one, even if it was just with a sentence, you're not invisible, I see you. And somehow, that was enough. She hosted workshops on legal protection during pregnancy, built templates for women to protect themselves financially, taught seminars on boundaries, medical advocacy, emotional defense. The world had handed her a wound. She turned it into infrastructure. One afternoon, a woman approached her after a talk. Your story changed my life, she said. Cameron smiled, genuine, but the woman continued. It wasn't what happened to you. It was how calmly you made the world listen. That sentence stayed with her. Because power isn't just taken. Sometimes it's taught. That night, she opened a new notebook. Not for tracking revenge, not for leverage, but for building. Page 1 read, what if our pain isn't just meant to shape us but to reshape the world? And beneath that, she wrote, he came back to apologize. I didn't need it. It was a sunny Tuesday when he showed up. No warning, no invitation. Just Darren standing at the edge of the community center lobby where Cameron was leading a workshop. Khakis, rolled sleeves, a face rehearsed in regret. He didn't look like a villain. He looked like a man who had just realized the story moved on without him. He waited until the room emptied. Cameron wiped down the whiteboard, wrote see you next week on the corner, then finally turned. Hi, he said softly. She didn't flinch. I saw the podcast, he said. You were incredible. Cameron folded a stack of pamphlets. He cleared his throat. I just wanted to say, I'm sorry for everything. For not being there. For letting her, she raised a hand. You don't owe me an apology, Darren. And I don't owe you forgiveness. Silence. I was weak, he said. She finally looked at him, eyes calm, unbothered. You weren't weak. You were cruel in a very quiet, socially acceptable way. And that's what makes it dangerous. He blinked. No defense. You look strong, he said. She tilted her head. I am. And the thing is, Darren, I was always this woman. You just didn't see me because I didn't bleed loud enough. He swallowed hard. I wish I could go back. She shook her head. I don't. Because I never would have become this version of myself if I hadn't watched the men I trusted step aside while I shattered. He nodded. Can I at least see Levi sometime? Cameron thought for a moment. When he's old enough to understand who gets to be in his life, we'll let him choose. Then she turned, gathered her things, and left him standing there, a man no longer at the center of anything, because the truth was, Darren hadn't lost his family. He had lost access to a woman he never really deserved. I didn't survive to be Silenthy Day. Her book launched. Cameron didn't throw a party. There was no cake, no live stream, no gold balloons. She just walked into her favorite bookstore and saw it sitting in the front window. Unbreakable. How I Took Back My Name by Cameron Hart. She stared at it for a long time, not because she was surprised, but because she had once convinced herself she wouldn't survive the year. Inside the book was everything. Not just the affair, not just the flowers, but the silence, the hospital shadows, the moment she realized her life had a leak and no one but her could stop the flood. She didn't write it to be famous. She wrote it so women would stop blaming themselves for being wounded. So they would understand. Healing isn't the opposite of revenge. It's the power to write the ending and not hand the pen to the person who hurt you. Weeks later, she did a book signing. The line wrapped around the block. A young girl came forward, barely 20, voice shaking. I was going to stay with him until I read chapter 5. I left. I slept in my car for 2 nights, but I feel alive again. Cameron signed the book, looked her in the eyes. That's chapter 1 of your story now. She returned home that night, put Levi to bed, lit 1 candle, and walked to the mirror. The same mirror she once looked into with swollen eyes, bleeding heart, and shaking breath. Now, she saw a woman who had nothing left to prove. Only stories to tell. She wasn't Cameron the wife. She wasn't Cameron the victim. She wasn't even Cameron the survivor. She was Cameron Hart. And her name, her story would outlive every lie ever told about her. The end. Now it's your turn. What would you have done if someone sent you that bouquet? Have you ever felt underestimated and came back stronger? Drop your story in the comments below. Let the world hear you. Because sometimes, the most powerful thing a woman can do is simply speak.